everyone, my name is Serena, and today I'm going to be showing you how to work with the brushes in Photoshop. So I've just got base Photoshop, and I've done just a quick sketch of some mountains in the background. Over here you can see my layers panel. I put each mountain layer on its own layer in the sky in the back. And right now I'm on the bucket fill, but this icon over here is the brush. And I'm working with a Deco 01 drawing pad right now. So if you don't have the pen pressure sensitivity, don't worry. That's something that comes with having something that will draw like that. As you can see, I can turn the pressure sensitivity on and off, and it changes the brush down here. Some of the main things that you need to know when working with brushes in Photoshop is just where all of the tools are located and what they do. So you have your brush tool over here that you can click on. This is the pressure sensitivity button that allows you to create, I'm on the wrong layer. I'm going to create a new layer, move it to the top, brush settings. So these are your brush settings right here. These are all the different kind of additions you can make to your brush to kind of change it up. I would stick with just the, if you're new to Photoshop, I would stick with just the base brush for right now and just modify these things down here. Right here you can see you can change the size of the brush, make it bigger or smaller. Over here, this rotates the direction the brush is pointing. So for example, if I wanted this brush to be really narrow and long, I would go like this. Also, if you are increasing the size of your brush in Photoshop, the bracket key next to your P key makes it smaller, and the one next to that on its right makes it bigger. So you can raise and lower your brush size just by doing that. Another thing you can do is you can change what kind of brush you're using. You have to do all the modifications again, of course. But this brush, for example, is much choppier than the other brush. The other brush was very smooth and oval-like. This one's much more just kind of spotty. And you can tell kind of by the shape of the brush right here. This one looks like leaves. And you can download more brushes, but this is just the basic brushes, and I've always been able to get by with just them. Up here you have your different blend modes. Like you can blend with all these, you can change your brush to do all of these different things, like lighten. I don't know if I can have you see with this color. It doesn't look like it'll let me do it with this color, but you can yeah, maybe not. I might just do that in the layers if you're going to be changing something. Over here we have opacity, and that means when you press really lightly, it doesn't, so that's the regular brush. This is light opacity. So you can change that on and off. I like to use that when I'm blending and I don't want to constantly change the color of what I'm using. So just kind of just demonstrate what I've been showing you guys. I'm going to start creating a landscape. So I'm going to tilt my brush because I want this to kind of go up the side of the mountain. I'm going to, if I hold down Alt on a Windows and I click on the layer below, it should link it like that, which means that when I color on this layer right here, it will only color in the places that are colored on the layer below it. So if I go over here and I say, let's go with a green color, kind of a cheery but not too cheery green. Because honestly, in nature, a lot of your colors aren't quite as saturated and vibrant as you might think they are. Just kind of start adding in little specks of color here. And I'm using the opacity brush to kind of get those colors that I want in there, because you can go over it multiple times to get the shade that you want, but it's easier to come back and do that later if you need to, rather than trying and getting all of the colors on there at once. And while I do this, I do like to have my color wheel open. So I have a color wheel over here, and I can start changing the shades as I go through, just to give it a little bit of variation. You can see right now I'm just kind of laying down a few base colors, nothing honestly serious right now. If I want to add in large blocks of color, I'd turn off the opacity and just start laying it down. In fact, I might do that on the other side too. I go into brush settings and I change the angle. Let's change the size too, just make it slightly smaller so it kind of fits this general idea. You can kind of see I'm trying to make it look like it's brushing up against the mountain a little bit, and so I change the angle once in a while. Make it higher in some areas and lower in others. I'm going to fill this in. Later I'm going to have a stream go through it, so I'm going to want to clear a place where the darker blue can shine through. But for right now, this will work. So I've got this almost done, kind of, and then I'll start adding in a couple darker colors using the opacity. Let's see, actually going to go big on this. And you'll notice I'm not, actually I am, so I need to take that off. Using the, I'm so bad with words today. The pressure sensitivity button up here, because I'm just kind of blocking in colors rather than laying them out. So what I pressed right there was the I key, and that allows you to select specific colors inside of your painting. So it's much faster than trying to go back through the brush settings all of the time. So you can see I'm kind of adding in a little bit of texture here and there. Lighter areas, darker areas. A little bit of change. I'm actually going to change that, turn that on. If there were a key for this, I need to go find it. You can see I'm just kind of adding in highlights in areas where I think the mountain would look like it's brushing up against the sides. I'm just kind of adding in just randomly spots of color. It doesn't really matter exactly where it is, because the detail comes in later. So right now, the stuff I'm using for the brush is the pressure sensitivity and the opacity. The opacity is the big part. You can go in, just add different colors, different color schemes. You might even add, like if you're really confident, you can start adding in the darker values and some different colors as well. Because colors make a big difference when doing stuff like this. Like if you were having a sunset, you would add in some reds and oranges. But I'm not going to get into color theory right now because that's kind of complicated and I could go on in a whole episode about that. So as you can see, getting some base values in there. Nothing too fancy, because I'm just kind of showing the brushes techniques right now. Maybe a slight hill right here in the front. You can see I'm kind of blocking in those shapes a little bit. I can go back later and start doing specifics where I add detail and sharpen up the edges and stuff like that. Adding things to their own layers. So you've got this right here. You can also do the same thing with the eraser brush. So for example, right here, it's also got the exact same brush settings. This is how a lot of people do trees, is that they sprinkle their leaves in and then they grab the same leaf brush they used for their trees and they start erasing sections from the trees. Sorry, I have a hard time talking and drawing at the same time. As you can see, bring that up there, up here. Now I can go in here, and I'm going to make this stream, let's say a light blue. And colors look more natural. Like if they're way over here, they look almost exaggerated. You're going to want them slightly grayed and dulled. So I use this right here a lot to kind of help adjust my colors and get them the way I want them to be. For this, I think I'm going to keep it on the same brush. This one seems to do really well with landscaping. And I'm going to create another layer. And again, I'm going to put it on top of this one so that it doesn't go over. And I'm still on the eraser. Tilt this again. And then just start blocking in the colors of the stream. Nothing too fancy, of course. I'm not going for professional here right now. Add in some detail later. As I go over here, I can add little shadows. Typically water is a little bit choppy. And there's always highlights and shadows that you can find in them. For example, if I go way over here, down here, you can see. And again, this is just using the base brushes to kind of get that look. I'm going to merge this layer actually. Down. I just right clicked and clicked merge down in order to get that on top of each other. So that I can go in here and I can add, kind of make it look like it's lapping against the shore a little bit. So it doesn't look quite as choppy as it could be. And if we go like this, see right here, it looks kind of like there's a hill, right? Forcing the water to go in one direction. So I'm going to start adding in little highlights on top. And the lighter I press with this mouse, the less it actually colors. And so that would help. That helps when you're trying to get some shades in that you just kind of need to get some basic colors down, but it's not really working very well. But yeah, I'll probably go back in later and add in some other colors. Change it up a bit. But you can see the grass is coming along. The little shades in the ground and that's basically how you use brushes. So you have your brush angle and width versus height. You've got your your pressure sensitivity, your opacity, your brush tool over here. There's also a pencil tool, a color replacement tool, and a mixer brush tool. I wouldn't suggest using this one because you'd assume it would blend things, but it honestly doesn't work all that well. There's also a blend option somewhere in here. I don't use it. If I'm going to be blending something, like seriously, I go to GIMP because they're blending in Photoshop. I don't know if it's just me, but I've never been able to get it to work correctly. But yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know and I will try and get back to you with another tutorial.